Hello everyone, and mabuhay. I want to welcome you to our midweek getting together online, and so glad you could join us tonight. And some of you might notice that I'm wearing my new barong that I purchased in the Philippines, and I thought it would be suitable for the occasion, seeing as I'm endeavoring to be able to show you some pictures of the Philippines from our trip in a little bit, and just thought we'd sort of set the mood for it. It's not quite warm enough for a barong, but I thought it would be a good way to get started today. So I thought for tonight, for a change of pace, I just thought I would share some pictures from that recent trip, and we'll do that in just a moment. I will give you a little bit of an introduction before we get started. But before we do that, I want to just say a couple of things. First of all, congratulations to Amelia Pasqua on the arrival of her new granddaughter, and proud parents, of course, are Joshua and Alyssa and Hoffman. And Leigh Bell Hoffman was born a week ago, March 25, 6 pounds 3 ounces. I know many of you have been seeing this on social media, but congratulations to Emilia and to certainly to Joshua and Alyssa. And then I do want to remind you that when we finish tonight with these slides, I'll not be coming back on, but I want to encourage you to take some time and to pray. So much to pray about these days. Pray for our church family. Pray for those who have needs, those who are facing challenges with their work. Some have already been laid off. Pray for those financial needs. Pray for our health. Pray that God will protect us and keep us healthy. And then also let's pray. Others have got families that are stricken, and we just need to remember them. Brother Ralph texted today that his cousin Miriam's husband Ray has been diagnosed with COVID-19, and actually Miriam and Ray are both doctors, and so they're under care right now. Ria's family down in Seattle is recovering, and so we're grateful for that, but let's continue to pray for them as well. So originally, our trip was planned so that we would arrive in the Philippines a few days early, head north for a couple days of rest and relaxation, sort of get over the jet lag, get ready for the remainder of the trip. And then we're going to come back into Manila and spend the weekend there, attending a couple of churches on Sunday, do a bit of sightseeing on Monday. And then the Spiritual Leadership Conference, SLC Asia, would begin on Tuesday, and we would be involved in that for 3 days. And we were really excited about that. We knew there'd be great preaching, just thousands of people coming. And then after the conference on Friday, we were going to fly to Cebu and there be met by our missionaries, Wayne and Donna Wally, and go up and spend the weekend with them in Compostela, be involved in the churches that they're involved in, and spend some time with them. And then on Monday, we were going to fly from Cebu over to Clark Airfield, and there we would be picked up by our other missionary, Brother June Malazzo, and we would make the way with several other families from our church, make the way to Sagada and spend the week with them, trying to be an encouragement to them, strengthening them in the Lord, and then be ready for their 3rd anniversary. And there were some special opportunities for me to preach, and just really excited about being with them for that weekend. Well, of course, a few months ago, the world began to change with the arrival of the coronavirus called COVID-19. First, it was primarily an Asian concern, which, of course, really would impact SLC Asia. And the leadership there were just praying and seeking God, and eventually felt that the best thing for them would be is to bring this all to an end or postpone it. And they've set a new date for next year. But the best course of action really brought, of course, a lot of disappointment to literally thousands of people. We, at that point, began to pray and determine that really, even though we wanted to be in the conference and be part of that exciting event, we also were excited about the plans to go and see our missionaries. And we felt that at this point in time, it was, let's go ahead. Let's move on this thing. Let's go and see those missionaries. And but upon arriving in the Philippines, we soon realized that things were definitely becoming much more of a concern in the Philippines, and the leaders of the nation and those that were serving the council with him obviously were having to face big decisions, and we saw that changes were going to be on the horizon. As most of you know, we did get to do some of the relaxing things, sightseeing things, and we are excited about that, and learned a great deal about the country. We're just really so grateful to the Lord for those opportunities. But at the last minute, even as we were already checked in to fly up to Cebu, major shutdowns of land and air travel really brought the missionary segment of our trip to a halt. And we were not able to complete our plan and purpose. And it was disappointing, very disappointing. But we have the peace that, this was all God's doing, and we were definitely trying to follow Him. And we're just thankful that we were able to get back home. The others of those I began to nickname Team Asia or Team Philippines, minus Brother Adonis and Beth, but we're thankful that they were able to catch flights, eventually get home. And still without Sister Adela, who is okay and safe with her family. We're praying that the Lord will open a door for her to come back soon. Now, one more thing before I share the pictures and videos, I want to take time to thank Brother Marty and Nancy Savaras for their efforts through all this. Mostly Nancy did a lot of the work of scheduling, arranging bookings, hotels, drivers, meals, and this ended up being really not such an easy thing. And we are so very, very grateful for their efforts on our behalf. And we were pampered and cared for, and they made certain we didn't get lost, and all the transportation was arranged. And so it was really good. And I want to thank my wife also for her iPhone videos. They've really added a lot. I was busy with a camera looking at things, and she took some great shots that you'll see in just a few moments. Now, please understand that this was a new experience for me to do things this way. I had intended for us to do this in church, and I would show things, talk about them as we went. So for me to try to put this all together was something totally new, and I got to tell you, it's pretty rough, and there are some mistakes. One particular point, I mentioned that we have been joined by the Savarases when I meant to say we've been joined by the Smarts, and so anyway, it'll be what it is. But I trust it'll be an encouragement, let you see some of the places that we went, things that we were able to enjoy and be a part of, but also some sights into the Philippines itself. So anyway, again, I'll not be back after the video, but I trust it'll be an encouragement, just a little bit something different tonight. And I invite you and urge you to take some time to pray. And God bless all of you now. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone, and mabuhay. I want to welcome you to our midweek getting together online, and so glad you could join us tonight. Well, it's a privilege for me to be able to share with you some pictures concerning our trip to the Philippines. We would have liked to have done this in our church auditorium, but of course, we're unable to do so. So we're going to try to put this all together and share some things with you, and trust that everything will go together and you'll be able to see the things that we were able to see. We left on Monday night, March the 2nd, and we flew for 14 hours straight, arriving in Manila at 4:30 in the morning on Wednesday, the 4th of March. And of course, coming into Manila Airport, we were greeted with a sea of people and all kinds of folks getting off the plane, not only our plane, but several other planes, and just trying to navigate our way around and finally go through customs and then be able to get our luggage. And here you find me with the crowd of everybody else getting our luggage. And we were then greeted by Brother Marty and Nancy, who were there to pick us up. They'd gone a few days early and were there and drove us immediately. We were thrust into traffic. That was quite an experience. But then we went to Nancy's mom's home, where they allowed us to, I rested probably maybe only 15 minutes or so, but took a shower, got cleaned up. And so my wife and I, here we are outside of her home. And we were excited to be there and ready to go a little bit exploring, do a few things, trying to make the most, stay awake throughout the day. So then we began to make our journey, and we enjoyed the traffic. This was actually pretty mild, but it was good to see Brother Marty had sort of slipped back into Manila driving. He's quite good with his horn, and all horns are friendly in the Philippines. They are a honk to say, "Hi, I'm here, look out for me." And not too much in anger, but we're just amazed by all the traffic and people weaving in and out. But nobody gets angry. Everybody just says this is the way it is.
There's a policeman.
And of course, then we got to see jeepneys in abundance, and they were everywhere. And that, of course, was very fascinating to us. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Marty and Nancy have planned to take us to a lovely restaurant for lunch. And right away, getting our taste buds ready for Filipino food. This restaurant was quite a nice place. Obviously very Catholic. A huge Catholic mural had been painted. But we had lots of wonderful food and really enjoyed our time together. And then we were back out on the road driving, and these are just things that, of course, were all new and interesting to my wife and I. The jeepneys, I think what really struck me is that how many people use these things, and they ride in them, and they're pretty rough and rugged things when you think about it, but I saw, businessmen in suits and ties, ladies obviously in high heels and all dressed up for the office, and all kinds of things, and people just jumping on, students in uniforms and college students in uniforms and all kinds of people. But they definitely are a backbone of the transportation in many ways. Well, we went down to the Manila Hotel, a very historic hotel, and this was a shot of our room where we stayed, built in 1912. Many personalities, General MacArthur, politicians, all kinds of people have stayed in this hotel. Surprisingly, cost-wise, compared to Canadian hotels, it really was not all that terribly expensive. In fact, it wasn't that expensive at all. We've paid more for the days in next to our church than these rooms cost, and we enjoyed we stayed there twice, 2 individual nights. This was the view out of our room that evening, and we certainly enjoyed our time there. And beautiful lobby as you come in, so you can see this was not the Days Inn, obviously, and was very beautiful. And so we had a good lunch. We weren't really interested in any supper, so we decided that we would go for a walk. And really within just a block or so of the Manila Hotel is a real important park in the Philippines called Rizal Park. And the big Philippine flag, of course, flying. And here is a monument in memory of Jose Rizal, who is seen as a catalyst leader. They led the revolution that overthrew the Spanish rule of the Philippines. He was a moderate, did not actually advocate military action, but the Spanish knew of his influence. And eventually then on December 30th, 1896, he was executed by a firing squad, and he truly became a martyr for liberty. And in the following months, other leaders stepped up to take his place and eventually were able to secure freedom for the Philippines. And it's a beautiful park. A lot of people were there. Obviously, some flowers and people out strolling. At that point, there wasn't a lot of the physical distancing things going on. And so people were out still enjoying the evening. I found this interesting, a little pigeon hotel. And people staying there, pigeons staying there. And there's a large amphitheater, and again, there was music playing, and people were really enjoying their time out. And there was also a reconstruction of a traditional Philippine home for many years. The cooler area downstairs, but a lot of business would take place there, and then the living quarters upstairs. And then we came across this gigantic statue in the park as well. And this is Lapu-Lapu, who was ruler of the island of Mactan in 1521. Now, Ferdinand Magellan, a great Portuguese explorer, had arrived in the Philippine Islands, made contact with another ruler, and that ruler supposedly converted to Catholicism, submitted to be baptized, and then persuaded Magellan to go with him and to intervene in a battle with Lapu-Lapu. And so they attacked Mactan Island. And in that fight, Magellan was cut off from his own men and was badly wounded by Lapu-Lapu and eventually killed by Lapu-Lapu's warriors. So this is seen as an attempt to stop European occupation of the Philippines. And so he is also upheld as a hero. And then a lot of museums circle this park. Here's the National Museum of Natural History, and just another one on the other side. But it was a lovely evening, and we enjoyed walking. It was quite a large park, and we enjoyed our walk around it, and just seeing it. At the one end of the park, there was a pond or a body of water that they had put together, and they had built a map of the Philippines, all the islands, and so it was quite interesting to see. And then as the sun set, we returned then back to the Manila hotel. Well, the next morning we got up to a sunrise over a portion of Manila, and just really it struck me, a still picture doesn't convey, as we could hear the traffic outside and the busyness of the people already beginning, and just really struck us of really the great need that is still there in the Philippines. And one nice thing about the Manila Hotel is you get a free buffet breakfast with it, and we enjoyed that with Marty and Nancy. Well, we spent the rest of the day getting loaded up and making our way up north, and then around and back down again to the Bataan Peninsula. And there we went then to a place called Amvaya Cove. And this was a resort that Nancy's brother had, sort of like a timeshare we would think of here in North America, but a very beautiful spot. And we were to go up there and spend a couple days, and they had planned this for us so that we could, sort of relax. And her brother had a lot of time built up, and so we were able to go and stay there. Really didn't cost us anything, but we just really had a lovely time. This is the view from our little porch that we had, and my wife and I were able to go out each morning and just spend some time drinking coffee, reading our Bibles, and spending time with the Lord, and just really enjoying the setting, listening to the birds, and it was just really, really a nice place, and we did relax, and I think that really helped us for the remainder of the trip, and we're thankful for the thoughtfulness and the kindness of Nancy's brother to be able to let us stay, and she had someone else, a former business person she knew that had property up there as well. This is the view of Amvaya Cove, a very beautiful scene, and we did enjoy eventually walking around it. My wife and I did take a walk and went around this beach. We heard this thumping as we began the walk, and some of the land's crew looking after things. They were cutting down coconuts and stuff so they wouldn't fall on the guest, and there's some green mangoes they cut down as well. We did have a green mango shake, which was quite good. I don't know if it was from those mangoes or not, but anyway, we really enjoyed the time. Just a beautiful, cove as we walked around. I think we got a bit of sun that afternoon as we just strolled and enjoyed ourselves together. The water was, of course, beautiful and crystal clear. Some rock formations in the bay, and anyway, we just really enjoyed our time. Beautiful palm trees to sit under, and of course a very lovely pool. And we were excited to be able, one night at sunset, we went out into the ocean. My wife and I went swimming in the ocean and discovered that it was the South China Sea, which made it rather exotic, although there are some that would argue it's the West Philippine Sea. And but we really enjoyed the time, and just it was a nice experience for us. And then the next morning, as we were getting ready to go, we spent 2 days there. Finally, the last day was really a nice feature there. You just phoned, said, I need to get somewhere, and these guys would show up with a cart and take you wherever you wanted to go, to the activity center, down to the restaurant to eat, whatever you wanted to do, they were there to help you get there. We had a bit of time that last morning to walk around and enjoy it one last time, and then finally this was at our checkout as we left, and got on our vehicle, the van that we were taking, and headed back down. The Lord looked after us. We actually ended up with a flat tire. My wife and I were sitting in the back, and we kept hearing all this noise and trying to communicate to the driver that we were hearing this thump, 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 thump. Eventually, he listened to us, and sure enough, we pulled off, and the tire was coming apart. We're thankful it didn't blow out. This was, I don't know if it was the NLX or the CX or SCX, I forget, a couple main highways there, but a lot of traffic. You can see the truck going past us there, but just thankful for the Lord's safety and watching over us. And then this was as we got closer into Manila area, Metro Manila, and I found it interesting watching this little video. My wife took a lot of these, seeing this truck that came over in front of us, and then he went all the way over to the shoulder and just kept driving along. And so these are all videos now from within the city. Those of you from Metro Manila and that area, you know something of the busyness and the people everywhere, the little tricycles that people, I don't know how they can fit in there, but I guess they're smaller than me. But they're everywhere, driving people around for hire. Of course, scooters, they're doing the same thing. Some are personal, but a lot of them have businesses. And then, the lots of the jeepneys are just going all the time. And then we basically, this route we sort of followed, this was going back into the neighborhood where Nancy's mom's house was. And as we came along, we came across, at one port, there's a chunk of land that the owner has allowed squatters to go in. They've lived there now for a number of years, and they've settled there. They've got little shacks built in. They have little things going on, cooking food, selling it. The kids are playing. It was during this stretch here that my wife saw a little girl sitting on a bench. She had a pair of scissors, and she was cutting her own hair. I don't know how her mom liked that at the end, but anyway, we got back, and we actually settled into a place where we were staying downtown.
Oh, careful. Oh, this little girl's
So then the
cutting her
next day
hair.
was Sunday,
Oh.
and of course we were just going to attend services, but because of SLC being canceled, I ended up with some wonderful opportunities to preach. This is at Hebron Baptist Church. Pastor Espinoza was not there. He's out of country. Actually, he's in the States right now. But his sons, Jonathan and Joseph, looked well after us, and I had the privilege of preaching there. And here are some of the folks from the church. I guess wanted to have their pictures taken with the unknown Canadian pastor and his wife, but we had a lovely time of sweet fellowship. Afterwards, we went to lunch at a Filipino favorite called Shakey's Pizza. It's an American chain. There's Brother Rabbi and Judith have joined up with us at this point. And these are the drivers are there, Bradley and Marlon, and they're not saved, and really pray for them. And then in the evening, we went to La Loma Baptist Church again. This was the end of their missions conference, their final night. They've been having missions conference. They had lots of missionaries, lots of guest preachers, and Brother Alan Fong from California was going to be their final preacher. And when he was unable to come or chose not to come because of the cancellation of SLC, Brother Takero got in touch with me and asked if I would be willing to preach. It was a great honor. This is their building. A lot of the churches in Manila build up and to maximize their space. They have an underground parking garage. I thought that was sort of interesting. I don't know if we could pull that off here, but they certainly had some spaces underneath. And this was the group that was there with us that evening. The two young ladies on the right are Nancy's nieces, Katrina and Camilla. And they've been here to Vancouver, visited us. And then this was in the church service. You can see a large auditorium, larger church than our church. And this was their choir. They all had T-shirts with countries that they support missionaries in. They had a wonderful music program. And let's you just go ahead and hear this. And again, it was my privilege to be able to preach there. And thank the Lord for His moving in hearts and a lot of good decisions that night as well. And then Brother Takero had invited some of the missionaries up on the platform, some of their speakers, presented them with citations and some gifts. And I did not expect, we were just there the one night, but they were well prepared for us and invited us up and treated us so kindly. Well, the next day we were going to go and do some sightseeing, and so we had to have breakfast, right? And this time we had breakfast at Jollibee's, and there you go, chicken and spaghetti for breakfast. That was a good one, and we enjoyed that. And then this was a mall that we were in and had gone down into, and that's where we had eaten. But the mall there, my wife took these because there were just all these people when we came out were lined up waiting to get into the mall. They were having their temperature taken and their hands squirted with sanitizer, and so that was increasing. We also were very curious about the electrical system in the Philippines. I don't know how anybody knows where any wire is going anywhere, but there's a lot of things tied into it. And then also the use of scooters, and the scooters and motorcycles would all scoot through at every traffic light. When there was a stoplight, they'd all fill up to the front and then take off ahead of everybody else. Well, then we went to Intramuros, which means within the wall, and it's the original site of the original Manila. And there's some very old buildings here, obviously, and it was interesting to see some of the things. These were, some of them had been used by Americans back when the Americans were the ones that were occupying the land back in the early 1900s, and then again during World War II and returning at that point and trying to bring liberation. And then this was Fort Santiago, and this is the main gate there. Very beautiful structure. It was inside of this fort that the Japanese basically held pretty much their last stand in the Philippines. And the Americans came in, and actually the lower portion of this gate has all been rebuilt, reconstructed, because the Americans blasted it out as they went in with their tanks. And just very interesting to see. On the inside, there's a museum to Rizal, and here's an artist's rendition of his execution, but just obviously very important individual in the Philippines. And then we got a ride on the one-horse little wagon, took us around. We had a tour guide for our time through Intramuros, which was very helpful, gave us things that we probably wouldn't have been able to figure out what was going on, and so that was a very helpful thing. So here's a little bit of him speaking and telling us a bit about
it was built in the year 1571, and believe it or not, the church was built by Chinese. That explains the Chinese lions decorating the main.
Then we were able to go and visit a cemetery. It's the American Military Cemetery, and there are a number of Filipinos buried here as well. But this is the largest U.S. cemetery outside of the United States itself. 56,000 soldiers are buried here. Quite a moving scene, and very beautifully kept. Of course, it was given by the Philippines to the U.S. for this. And it's just amazing to see these row upon row of crosses and Star of Davids, and to realize how many people lost their lives in that tragic conflict of World War II in the Pacific battlefields. And they had just opened last fall a new, visitor center, you would call it. And we were able to go in and view about a 20-minute video about the war. It was very interesting. And then this area was a large circular area. You can see it goes all the way around. And in it was the names of all those who had perished in battle, but whose remains were never recovered. And a lot of Filipino guerrillas, that resistance movement that fought. It was very moving scenario. And then they had these mosaic maps that were there, several of them showing various things about the war, and again just the beauty of the scene there as well. And then looking towards the main downtown area of of Manila there, and did a shot of my wife and I as well. Well, then we changed hotels and we moved into the Conrad. Now the Conrad was the main hotel for Spiritual Leadership Conference. And it's right next to the SMX Center, which is the huge convention center and we did get to go in and see the large hall that would seat 10,000 people. And it's right on Manila Bay. And so this is where we stayed the last little while. For 3 days, this was our room, a much more modern style room, very nice than the Manila. I think we all decided we'd like the Manila a little bit better, but this was a very nice place to stay. And then out walking around, my wife and I found a place to get, they look like ice caps, don't they? Well, indeed, there were some Tim Hortons there. And that was quite an interesting thing. And we did go by there twice and got a couple Tim Hortons coffees. And so this is the Conrad Hotel. and just a very beautiful building. And then there was this long promenade along Manila Bay, and my wife and I went out and walked along it a bit as well. There was also the Mall of Asia there, huge mall, largest in Asia, and it was quite interesting to go and walk around it as well. In the morning, if you can see down here, these construction workers were there. I don't know what all they were doing, but every morning they were there about 6:30, and they were having their orders given to them for the day, what they were to do, and they were busy all day long, and there were night shifts as well. So I don't know what all they were constructing, but anyway, they were very busy about it. And this was sunset there on Manila Bay. Well, then on Thursday, we got together, and we had met up with, added the Savarises to our crew, and we were going up to Tagaytay. I think I've pronounced that right, maybe not. But on the way, we stopped at Bacoor, another city, in this mass metropolis. And this is an area that Brother Marty and Nancy have been praying about and feel that maybe the Lord would be leading them to return to the Philippines and take up ministry there, trying to reach this area. There was a church at one time that Brother Marty was familiar with that has been closed for a number of years now, yet the old sign is still hanging up on this old building. But this was on a fairly major street going through. Brother Smart walked over, and then Marty and Nancy were there as well. And I don't know. We feel Marty's heard that the property has been sold after a number of years, but we know that if God's got something in store for them, that He'll open the door. And then we had the great honor of going by Marty's dad's home and meeting his dad and spending a few moments visiting with him. And it was really, really good, and big tears in his eyes because Marty wasn't going to be staying very long this time, but I hope they'll be able to go back soon to be able to be with him. And then this is just us walking back. We had just parked off the street and walked into the neighborhood, and the garbage truck came along. We all had to get out of the way, but just the busyness, people everywhere, and just lots of news at that point. Well, we did make it up to Tagaytay and went to another lovely restaurant that Nancy had found, and they booked a reservation for us all, and we were able to go and had the privilege of meeting up with Julieta's brother, who is a pastor, Brother Tony Maramara, and his dear wife, and we had a lovely lunch together with them and visiting. We're so glad that they spent the time to come down and meet up with us. And we just, again, had all kinds of wonderful food and enjoyed that. And just a dear brother serving the Lord and his wife, faithful for many years there. And we really thank the Lord for him. And it was a real privilege for me to get a chance to meet him and to chat with him and just, talk about things and get to know one another. Well, the restaurant was up on a hill overlooking Taal Lake. And the brown island over there is Taal Volcano, and that erupted in January, and so very recent eruption, and that's all fresh ash that has come up out of the volcano and covered that particular area. This is looking straight down the hill. This village used to be on that island years ago, but because of the unsettledness and the eruptions, they relocated across to this side of the lake. But it was just a very beautiful view. And glad that it wasn't erupting because we were able to go and view it and enjoy that time there as well. As you can see, it was windy that day, but we just had just a real lovely time overlooking after we had our meal and just visiting. There's our group that was all together that day, and we're very thankful for that. Then we went back into Manila. And that was on Thursday night, or on Thursday, and that evening we were still back at the Conrad, and we were waiting there because that night the president was going to be speaking, and sure enough, at 9:30 they made the announcements that Manila was going to be shut down. Traffic was going to be kept out from going and coming except for essential services, things that we've heard so many times. And President Duterte said, we're not calling it a lockdown, but it is. And he said, you better obey us. And so at that point, we decided to go down to into Manila. And we went down to Old Chinatown, the oldest Chinatown in the world, to go to the Philippine airline office. And we spent a couple hours there trying to figure out what to do. They weren't a great deal of help, and I don't really blame them. It was a very uncertain time. They didn't know what was going on half the time. And so then we decided, okay, well, are we going to stay here till the 25th of March? We had another, well, I guess 10, 11 days. And we just thought that's not probably the best use of our time. And so we began looking for flights, and praise the Lord, we're able to get on to Japan Airlines. So we went back, we settled into Nancy's mom's house once again. She's very gracious to us. The Rabbies moved in, we moved back in. The Bastians got down, came down from Cebu. They were already in Cebu. We're able to get back down, and so we spent a little bit of time, did a little bit more shopping as long as they would allow us, but Sunday midnight came and everything really closed down. And so then on Monday, we were able to get to the airport, and here we are getting on that final airport. And many of the sections were quite empty because domestic flights had been canceled. This international flight was going out, and I think we were all pretty excited that we'd gotten flights and ready to go. Joel was a little bit excited. He was all pumped up because Jan had said yes the day before, and so we were quite happy for him, or 2 days before, I guess it was. And then this was all getting on the flight, and then taking off from the Philippines, and thankful for our time there, sad that things did not go as planned. We did end up in Japan, and so I got to visit Japan, and I saw this billboard, and we saw this one, Welcome to Japan, and that's all we saw. But we did have some ramen while we were there in the airport, and then boarded our flight and flew all night, and this was sunrise the next day coming into Vancouver. So again, I wish, there's a whole section of parts of this trip that I wanted to have for you and see our missionaries and see ministry going on, but the Lord had other plans. But again, I really feel that my wife and I at least benefited from this trip. There was much that we came away from the Philippines with, and very thankful that Lord allowed us this opportunity. And we trust that maybe someday He will allow us to return and have freedom of movement and be able to do the things that we would like to do. Thanks for your time and listening to this long monologue. I hope it was a help and just an encouragement to see some of these things together.